Hey, today we have news from the former CEO discussing Sony's interest in making Helldivers 2 available in more countries. He also talks about the flamethrower effect, a robot stem backpack stratagem, and a drone stratagem. Additionally, covered customized armor colors, weapon customizations, and much more. So if you find this video informative, please tap the like button, subscribe, and make sure you turn on notifications. There's a member on the official Helldivers 2 Discord who asked Johan if he was aware of the changes made to the flamethrower, specifically the effects. His response was, I read about it on Facebook when at family dinner during vacation. I understand what it aimed to do, but it was not iterated upon enough, and the visual effects look like TF1. Now, it's clear that Johan believes it should have received more testing time and that it wasn't fully developed. And I'm sure we all can agree that clearly it wasn't tested or refined enough before its release. So why was it released prematurely? The whole point of longer development cycles is to allow for thorough testing and obviously to avoid some of those previous mistakes. However, it seems this wasn't the case, as Johan believes there could have been more done, you know? So I ask again, why was it pushed out so fast? I don't think we'll receive a definite answer on that. Some have blamed PlayStation, but I cannot confirm that. So before we continue, what do you think about the response from the CCO? And why do you believe the patch was pushed out so quickly? If you don't think so, let me know your responses as well down below in the comments. Johan was also asked about the developer's overall morale in the studio. His response was that it's been low but justifiable. He said, it's hard, it's a tricky situation. The criticism is valid, but it causes low morale, and low morale causes slow development speed. Talk about a negative spiral. So it seems that because morale has been so low, the developers have now begun to slow down. That seems a bit odd because you'd think they would need to do the exact opposite, right? Pick themselves back up, especially when things aren't looking too well, right? You don't want to do that when things are just going the wrong way. It just seems like the wrong way of thinking. You'd expect them to start developing some stellar patches, but I guess all the recent backlash and hate has really put a damper on their mood, and honestly, I don't like the sound of it. It just doesn't sound reassuring that the future patches will be any better. Since we're on the topic of patches, the CCO has also informed us about the list of priorities. He wants the patches to be accurate as well as some improvements. He wrote on the Discord, fixing our update accuracy is number 1, then text stability to ensure we don't crash the game with updates, then progression. I'm not exactly sure what he meant by progression. The first thought that came to my head was maybe they're implementing more ways to earn and receive rewards, so you know there's more things to do. But maybe I'm just taking that wrong, and maybe he's just talking about the overall progression of the studio. Maybe progressing in a positive direction. Maybe that's what he's talking about. So let's go over some future plans. The CCO, Johan, has revealed that the team is currently working on a color system for armors, similar to what we have for vehicles. Specifically, he said, the team is working on a color mod system, same as vehicle patterns for armors. I'm going to guess that the colors we've already unlocked will be usable on the armors as well. The only part I question is how this will work with the camouflage armor. Will it not work so that the colors only apply to specific armors? That's what I want to know. Either way, I'm excited to see this feature at some point because it would give us the chance to show off some unique armors instead of the same old colors, you know, that we have now. Hopefully at some point we'll receive more clarity on this and understand exactly how customizations will work with armors. With that said, I would love to see more ways of acquiring colors so I do not have to rely solely on war bonds. It might not be a big deal for you, but it's annoying to know that that's the only way to unlock them. Maybe at some point they can introduce different colors in the shops to purchase. That would be cool to see. Moving along towards weapon customization, Pilstead believes we need upgrades and custom weapons so that it fits the playstyle. He mentioned, I think we need weapon upgrades and customizations to be able to tailor playstyles for advanced Helldivers, or advanced divers, either or. Another player wanted to know if they are looking into it, to which he replied, yes, we are looking at customization. Well, it's confirmed. As you can see, they are looking at customizations, and perhaps we'll hear more news about this soon. I've gone over some leaks in the past, and many of you have been wanting this for quite some time as well. And I wonder if they're going to implement what they did with Helldivers 1, where it requires samples to upgrade weapons. If so, I'm all in and can't wait for it. Speaking of weapons, Johan has given us a hint at what's to come next. There's a player on the Discord who asked if the last 13 Trident will make a comeback. Johan thinks the last 13 is on the list of upcoming weapons, but he's not 100% sure on this. If you were a big fan of Helldivers 1, then some of you might know how great this weapon is and are probably excited for it. If it is coming up next, they need to ensure it's both fun and useful right from the start, not something I'll pick up and put down a few seconds later. You know what I mean? It's the worst feeling ever because you want something useful against either the automatons or the bugs, but you end up with a weapon that basically shoots like a water gun. It's the same thing with the Stratagems. On a related note, Johan has also mentioned on Discord that the developers had created a robot stim backpack in the past, which could heal any Helldiver in your vicinity. He said, "We once had a backpack that was a robot arm that stemmed anyone nearby. I think we need more support stratagems in general for those who want to play to help the team." And like I mentioned a few seconds ago, they need to revisit this at some point. I love the idea of more support weapons. Specifically, I'd like a support weapon like maybe a backpack that could track enemy movement and also locate samples. It would essentially be maybe like a radar. Another backpack idea would be something like an Armageddon Strike from Far Cry 6, which would send out a bunch of missiles. There's a lot they can do with these backpack attachments. Maybe a different type of drone that shoots out flames. Well, perhaps once they figure out the flamethrower problems. That aside, the CCO revealed that the developers had created a prototype of a drone stratagem. He responded to a player saying, "Dude, I wanted that for such a long time. Drone controller backpack or something, maybe a support weapon." And engineering once did a prototype of a UGV bomb stratagem as a test. Was pretty cool, but not as usable as other stuff. This right here is yet another stratagem I'd love to see at some point. And it seems like the developers at Arrowhead have a lot of cool ideas. They just need the time to properly code and test them thoroughly so we don't end up with a bunch of bugs or problems, or in the worst case scenario, it turns out to be a lackluster stratagem. That's the worst. We've seen that with the Erebus rocket launcher, the mines, the smoke stratagems, and so on. Next, the community wanted to know where the review cape is and what's the status on locked regions. Johan responded, "I wrote about it earlier. Basically, the review cape is waiting for region conclusion." Some players were not too fond of this answer, resulting in Johan essentially saying that they don't want to release it before the situation is resolved, which absolutely makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't expect them to do that because I feel like there would be some sort of backlash surrounding that, considering the locked region situation is obviously still going on. A different player asked if the situation has not been concluded and can Sony reverse their decisions. The CCO replied, "The other way around, the final decision if it will be sold in more countries." So it appears they're trying to see if Helldivers 2 will be purchasable in more countries, which also means we could be getting close to a final statement once they do figure out the situation. But I'm sure we'll end up seeing that official statement by Sony, maybe Arrowhead. It's been quite some time since we've heard anything, so there's obviously some ongoing discussions on how they're going to plan this. Now, I do have some heartbreaking news for those hoping there would be some sort of flying vehicles at some point. Well, the CCO has confirmed this will not be happening. The reason behind this can be seen here on this official post where he says, "I promised the tech lead we would never. A lot of assumptions have been made on that." And yeah, that's the sad news. I know a lot of you have mentioned on the channel that that's something you would like to see, and of course, it's not happening. I know it sucks, but I think for me personally, it's okay. It's not a big deal, but hopefully they still have plans to bring vehicles in general. We know about 2 months ago, leakers found some things in the files indicating there was a full-size rover model. Some have also speculated that, hey, maybe it's a mission objective or something. So to be fair, it's hard to say if we'll actually get a functional vehicle to ride around in. I mean, to be fair, if the developers come out and they say, hey, we have no plans to introduce vehicles, I think I would be a bit disappointed by that news because the idea of roaming around a biome with a full squad sounds awesome. And if those dreams are crushed too, then that would suck. Now, with that topic aside, there was a question asked about collaborating with Deep Rock Galactic, and this is what the CEO had to say. While we are looking to do collabs, I think it's more important that we improve the state of the game and the quality of our updates. Which, he's not wrong, I think that's a great idea. Let's not collab just yet with anybody, and just kind of focus on the game, and I like that attitude, I really do. So, that right there is awesome to see. And maybe we'll see some improvements, you know, once the 60 days are all over. Maybe the game will actually turn out to be stellar, and we'll find out as time goes on, obviously. Now, is it possible that Arrowhead can reverse all the damage? Sure, I think it's entirely possible. But the thing is, they will have to do those test servers that they're talking about, but actually listen to the feedback and not just pass it off and be like, okay, they obviously don't know what they're talking about, when in reality, a good portion of us do. I won't say I know everything about the game, but I will say that I do have my own opinions. Some of you may not agree with it, which is totally fine. And there are some things that you say, you know, in the comments, and I agree to it, or I disagree. And I think that's what really makes the community so cool. It's because really we all have our own opinions on what's good and what's not. So with that being said, we're now going to move on and talk about something completely different, which is SEAF troopers. Are we going to be able to use the SEAF troopers at some point? Yeah, it's actually going to happen. So right here, Johan said, this is also in the works, ha ha ha, so much being worked on, the stability and balance controversies get in the way of us giving you amazing new stuff. Alright, it appears the latest controversy over balancing issues has stopped the developers from giving us some crazy content, and it certainly has made things difficult for them. However, at the same time, Arrowhead should have listened to the community back when we were all expressing that we wanted to have more fun. Instead, we saw a shotgun nerf and some huge changes to the flamethrower as well. And by the way, I'm not taking this as if he's blaming us all for, you know, speaking out. I'm just pointing out that they should have listened. But hey, that's water under the bridge. Maybe things will change because we have a status update on the test servers. And it appears that it will only be for selected individuals. Those who are accepted will have to sign an NDA, aka a non-disclosure agreement, so that if, you know, you go and run off your mouth, basically, you know, showing some unreleased stuff from that server, then yeah, they'll send you straight to Super Earth Court. So how do I know this? Well, Pilistad responded to a player that wanted to know if there was an update on this, which he replied, it will be a restricted group of active users and some sort of NDA will be attached. We don't want spoilers for those who aren't testing. And as you can see, the proof is in the pudding. So from what I remember, the CEO Shams mentioned in the past that servers, you know, they could happen in the next few months, but there was no estimated date as to when we can expect it. Once I figure out how we can apply for this, I will let you guys know how to do it and where you need to go, but my best guess is that they'll use Discord like they have done with the feedback forums. My best guess anyways. Now, I would personally recommend Google Forms for everyone to fill out, but Discord might be the best choice for now because it's easier for them to monitor, you know, who filled out the forms. Sort of, again, like what they did with the feedback forms. And if any suspicion arises, they can track down the main source. I'm assuming it probably wouldn't be too hard. And another thing that would be the issue with the whole Discord stuff is because if you're banned, then obviously you're not going to be able to participate. Next, we have word that the Eruptor, which previously had the shrapnel effect, was not just your normal shrapnel because the developer mentioned it was actually shrapnel from the airburst, not from a grenade, which is bonkers. But this is what he had to say in response to someone who basically asked, you know, what was going on with the Eruptor, to which Johan replied, agree, at first it used the orbital airburst shrapnel, which of course was a tad too much, but removing it completely was the wrong way to go. Okay, so maybe at some point they'll revert this, but without the airburst shrapnel. Instead, they could just add a normal grenade shrapnel. I mean, that makes sense, right? Not too sure who said, hey, let's throw an airburst on it, but that's completely nuts. Alright, we have gone over several topics, discussed different questions, and got some interesting answers. Now I have one more question that was asked by a member from the Discord who wanted to know if the devs were willing to add a way to rearm the mechs. And Pilistad wrote back and said, yeah, but we think some sort of resupply base with infinite ammo would be the way to go. We will have to see. We have a design workshop sometime in the future to connect the dots. I think if you're a mech user, you're going to love that news because I think this is something I would go to all the time. Of course, it's probably something you would have to find on the actual biomes and whatnot, which I don't have a problem with. Because at least you're able to refill your mech and then continue going. It's not like you're going to be able to just summon down this huge base, although that would be pretty cool. But it's not going to be something like that, at least from what I'm getting at. Now, we've gone over quite a lot in this video, but I'm sure some of you might be wondering, will there be a big update? It appears that's what's going to happen next. Pilstead informed another player that he's ready to get back to work and work on the next big update. Here's the exact quote. "Thank you, almost painted 2,000 points of Lizardman after 8 years of development. I finally crashed. Now I am rested and ready to help the team reach higher quality now and finish the next big update." So what we know as of right now, the developers do have plans to release more patches within the 60 days, but maybe we're going to receive a big patch and then maybe a smaller patch and maybe a few smaller ones, and then they'll release another big patch. The only problem with that is if they do release another patch, and then what happens when it's all jacked up again. And again, I don't want to be a gloomer, I don't want to be a doomer, whatever the word would be here. I really don't want to doom on it, but to be fair, it's gone south several times, guys. It really has. A lot of the issues have popped up. They say they're listening, then they're not. They say they're listening, and then again, they're not listening. But hey, what I'm going to do is remain optimistic this time around and just say give them another shot. We'll see how this update turns out. If it turns out solid, then I'm right. If I'm not, then I'm wrong, and then I'll own up to it and I'll give my final frustrations about it. But I would love to give them another shot because why not? They say they're listening. Obviously, they're going to do test servers. That's a big one, and it's going to be closed, but still, it's still worth taking note of. And, you know, obviously, they're actually listening. To me, that to me sounds like they're listening. For a lot of you, maybe not so much, but we'll see what happens when, you know, the next big update arrives. With all that information being said, we are now going to go over the top 3 comments from the previous video. If you guys would like to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. The first comment is by Zollyboy4705, Game of the Year to 60-Day Roadmap. The second top comment is, "This game has become the reverse No Man's Sky." Then the third and final comment is by Michael Harder 3005 or 55. "We've made the flamethrower worse by mistake and we can't be bothered to fix it. It's too complicated." So those are the top 3 comments. If you guys would like to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below like I mentioned, and you might just be featured. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.